So, you've built an API, and it's a hit. That's awesome. But here comes the tricky part. You need to make a change, maybe add a new feature. How do you do that without, breaking everything for the people who are already using it? That right there is the huge challenge of API versioning. And in this explainer, we're going to break down all the ways to tackle it. Okay, so here's the game plan. First, we'll dig into why this is such a tough problem to begin with. Then we'll look at the two big schools of thought, putting the version right there in the URL and hiding it somewhere else. And after that, we're going to put them all side by side so you can see the pros and cons and figure out what's right for you. And of course, we'll wrap it all up with the one big idea you absolutely need to remember. All right, let's dive right in. The thing about having a successful API is that success creates its own set of really tough, high-stakes problems. And this isn't some academic exercise, right? This is the real deal. Your API is out there, it's popular, people are relying on it. You can't just turn it off to make an update. That would be chaos. So what do? What's the move? I love this analogy because it's just perfect. Changing a live API really is like trying to renovate a busy train station while the trains are still running. You've got to perform some incredibly delicate surgery on a system that is very much alive and in use. The passengers, your clients, they just expect the trains to keep running on time. They have no idea about the crazy construction work happening just out of sight. And that's exactly where versioning comes into play. It's not just one thing. It's a whole collection of strategies and best practices we use to manage these changes gracefully. The entire point, the whole goal, is to let your API grow and get better without yanking the rug out from under everyone who's already built their business on top of it. Okay, let's get into our first major bucket of strategies. These are probably the ones you've seen the most. They're pretty straightforward because they put the version number right out in the open, smack dab in the address itself. The most common, most direct way to do this is versioning the whole API right at the root. See that little V1 right after the domain? That's a signal. It tells everyone that every single endpoint that follows belongs to version 1. It's like a big global switch for your entire API. All right, now here's a slightly different twist on that idea. You can version at the resource level. Check it out. The V1 comes after users. What does this let you do? Well, you could update the user's resource to version 1, but maybe keep, say, the product's resource on an older version. It's way more granular, way more specific. So right there, you see the fundamental trade-off. The root namespace approach is super simple. One version to rule them all, right? It's really easy to manage. On the other hand, resource-level versioning gives you this amazing flexibility to update bits and pieces of your API independently. But all that power, it comes with a cost, and that cost is complexity. So the real question you have to ask yourself is, do I need simple, global control, or do I need that fine-tuned, granular power? Okay, but what if you look at those URLs with a V1 and think, ugh, that just looks messy? What if you want to keep your URIs clean and timeless? Well, this next group of strategies does exactly that. They move the versioning info out of the URL path and stick it somewhere else in the request. This is a really popular one, especially with folks who are real purists about API design. You use HTTP headers. So the client asks for a specific version using the accept header with what's called a custom media type. It's basically the client saying, hey server, I'm ready for version 1 of your JSON format. The beauty of this is the URI stays totally clean, and the version gets sorted out behind the scenes during what's called content negotiation. It sounds fancy, but it's just the client and server agreeing on the data format. Another way to keep that main URI looking sharp is to use a query parameter. You just tack it on to the end. It's super explicit, right? Anyone can look at that full URL and see exactly which version is being asked for. The one potential downside here, some older caching systems and proxies can get a little tripped up by query parameters, and that could slow things down. And now, for the boldest, most controversial idea of them all. What if you just didn't version at all? Seriously, this strategy is often called API evolution, and it is a total high-wire act. The whole idea is that if you're disciplined enough, you can actually evolve your API forever without ever needing to slap a V1 or V2 on it. So you're probably thinking, how on earth is that possible? Well, it relies on some super strict rules. Rule number 1, you can only make additive changes. You add new stuff, that's it. You can never, ever break anything that already exists. That means no removing fields, no renaming things. You deprecate old stuff gradually. It's an incredibly powerful concept, but man, it requires a ton of careful planning and discipline from day one.
Okay, so we've looked at 5 totally different ways to handle this, right? From putting the version number right in the URL to just pretending it doesn't exist. Now it's time for the fun part. Let's put them all together and figure out how you actually choose one.
And that really is the million-dollar question, isn't it? With all these choices, which one is actually right for you? The answer has less to do with which one is technically the best, and a whole lot more to do with what fits your project, your team, and most importantly, the people who are actually going to use your API. This table, this is where it all comes together. Each of these rows isn't just a technical spec, it's a whole philosophy. Look at the URI methods. They're fantastic for caching, and they're crystal clear for developers, but they force your clients to actually change their code to point to a new URL. Then you have HTTP headers. They keep your URIs looking pristine, but now the version is kind of hidden, which can make debugging a real pain sometimes. The query parameter? It's visible, but it can clutter things up. And API evolution? If you can pull it off, it has the lowest impact on your clients, but it puts all the pressure on your team to be absolutely perfect. As you can see, there is no single best answer here. It's all about trade-offs. So, after going through all of that, where do we land? We actually arrive at a conclusion that's both really simple and, honestly, profoundly important. Here it is, the big takeaway. Stop looking for the one single best versioning strategy. It doesn't exist. The only thing that exists is the right strategy for you. You have to think about your specific situation. Are your clients okay with changing a URL every now and then? URI versioning could be great. Is your team full of API design wizards who are obsessed with backward compatibility? Maybe, just maybe, you can pull off API evolution. It all comes down to context. Context is king. And that brings us to one last question to leave you with. Your choice here isn't just about a technical detail. It's a statement. It's about your vision for the future. So, are you building an API that just solves today's problem? Or are you building something that's meant to last for the next decade? Your versioning strategy will be a huge part of that story. So, choose wisely.